Hi everybody. This week's class is about the light half of the high days in the light half of the year. So that falls between May and September. So for those of you who know the Wiccan holidays, Beltane and Mabon. May 1st, cross quarter for the Northern Hemisphere, is commonly referred to as Beltane. This name comes from the Gaelic tradition, and there's a few different common neo-pagan traditions with regards to this high day that many people know. One of them is the Maypole, dealing with the fertility of the land, and the fact that this cross quarter is typically known as the beginning of the summer half of the year. Some less known traditions are the May bush, which is a bush that in old times neighbors would actually steal from each other. But in this case, many groups who deal with the May bush will tie little ribbons on it and celebrate it that way. And because this is the exact opposite from Samhain, this is another time when the veil is thin. So another time when spirits are aplenty in the world. Some tradition-specific things are in the Welsh culture. This is a time of the wild hunt. It's the time of yearly battles and when the war season would start. And when they found Rhiannon's son that was stolen at the vernal equinox. In the Gaelic tradition, land spirits are plenty, as this is when the land is waking up, and they deal with the fires of purification, so dealing with blessing the animals in the heart that will be going out into the fields, blessing the people, and passing them through two fires. In the Gaulish tradition, once again, it's the beginning of the summer half of the year, and purification between fires like the Gaelic tradition. In the Norse, it's much more Beltane-y, like most people know, of magic and love. A lot of people know Beltane. This is one of those main days that people celebrate, kind of like Samhain. And it just so happens that it's typically a large festival for a lot of groups. The summer solstice, which happens approximately June 21st, is the next high day. And some common neo-pagan traditions, this is war season was heavy in a lot of the cultures, so sometimes honoring some of the warriors, stuff like that. Making sure that you're tending your crops, as this was when everyone was out in the fields, making sure that crops were aplenty, that they were growing, tomatoes being harvested, things like this. And this is one of the high days of the summer. So as the longest day of the year, it's the day when the sun is the heaviest and typically one of the hotter days. Tradition specifically, Gaelic, so Irish, was fire and frolic among the flowers. The crops were tended once again and the warriors were away at battle. Gaulish, dangerous wildfires and an all-night vigil. So the Gaulish would honor the wildfires that they couldn't control around their homes to make sure that they didn't come to them. And in the Norse tradition, they would celebrate the community and fire once again as the longest day of the year and the fire in the sky. The August 1st cross quarter, which is commonly known as Lunasa. Once again, the name comes from the Gaelic tradition. And some of the common neo-pagan traditions are games dealing with the first harvest, the wheat harvest, and once again another day of high heat. The reason for the games comes from the Gaelic tradition. It's a festival of Lugh and Tailtu, where Tailtu had given herself to make sure the Tuatha would have food for the harvest, and when she cleared the land, she broke her body and ended up passing away. Lugh, as her foster son, then instituted the games in her honor as a way to remember her. In the Welsh tradition, there's a story of their version of Lugh in the fourth branch of the Mabinogi, which is a popular story to tell at this time. And the Gaulish tradition, once again, it's a time of the harvest and the gathering of Lugus. So as you can see through all of these traditions so far, there have been gatherings of the tribes across the land to ensure, the little bits of the harvest that they have brought in are able to be traded and shared amongst the people. In Norse, once again, the start of the grain harvest, and they have equestrian activities, so those activities dealing with horses. Autumn equinox, so approximately September 21st, although it doesn't typically fall on the 21st. The common name is Mabon. This is a name that in some circles is hotly contested, and a lot of other people will call it things like Harvest Home or Harvest Tide, because they're not actually sure of where the name Mabon comes from. Mabon is a name of a, let me check my resource on that for a second, Welsh deity who is more like the Irish Angus MacOg, so more of a spring type deity. A lot of Mabon celebrations do not actually have to do with the deity Mabon. So this is why a lot of people decide to deal with the name of Harvest Home or Harvest Tide instead. This is mid-harvest, with the last harvest being Samhain, like I talked about last time. And a lot of things are falling leaves, Thanksgiving, making sure that your home is getting ready for the winter. Tradition-specific things are the play of mice from the Mabinogi and the savvy of one of the deities saves the harvest and not only their family. Gaelic, Harvest Tide, and evaluating the harvest, making sure that you'll have enough for the winter months, making sure that you'll be able to feed your family, feed your tribe for the rest of the coming season. In the Gaulish tradition, there's the settling of disputes, renewing contracts with your friends, family, loved ones, etc., and the celebration of community and maintenance of good relationships. So this is where a ghosty relationship or the guest-host relationship comes into play, and you ensure that you're a gracious host as well as an appreciative guest. In the Norse tradition, Thor and Sif are typically honored for their link to the agriculture and harvest. Now that I've spoken about a little bit about the different Highdays, there is one thing left, and that is the switch for if you're not in the Northern Hemisphere. All the dates I have said for the last two classes have been Northern Hemisphere-wise. If you are in the Southern Hemisphere, and so Australia, places like that, you're going to want to switch these Highdays. So the easiest place for me, because a lot of people see Samhain as the New Year, and because Beltane is right across from it, the easiest spot to switch it is Beltane and Samhain. So your May 1st cross quarter now becomes Samhain for the Southern Hemisphere. Sorry about that. And your Beltane traditions would go at your November 1st cross quarter. This is why ADF does not use tradition-specific names for the cross quarters, because we are an international organization. So that way people can switch the Highdays and still have everything correlate. So that is all I have for this week. And next week, I believe, let me check. I will check to see what's on for next week. Next week, we are talking about the ADF's core order of ritual, and I will be explaining what each section does briefly. We will also go over your home shrine and what goes on it. So that is all I have for this week. See you later.